Oh, Chris is here. I wonder if Allison, can we move? I know we jump around sometimes in these board meetings. Is there a way we could just move the abundant lease landfill item 11, move that up ahead of the MOU for Salt Springs Water District? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Chris is,
Absolutely. Go ahead.
that's not Chris though. Very good. And okay, this is for the abundant solar on the landfill on 5701 Bowman Road. And you've all received, I believe, the lease agreement with us and Abundant Solar. Tim, I know you've had a chance to go through the contract, and we made some adjustments from from a meeting we had prior. Do you want to just give us an overview, and if any of the board has any questions for Chris, we can do that after you give an overview.
Sure. There were two main issues that I was concerned about. One of them had to do with not paying for the lease payments until the operation date as opposed to the commencement date. The other main concern I had was with a section of the contract, the lease, that said that pilot payments would be reduced, or that lease payments would be reduced by pilot payments. We were successful in discussing this with Abundant. We were successful in getting pilot payments added back in. So there would be a pilot payment and there would be a lease payment. We weren't as successful on the commencement, on having the lease start at the commencement date. And it's Melissa, right?
Yes.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Tim.
Melissa's here from Abundant. Abundant's argument was that since they would not be making any income, that they would it would be hard for them to pay rent or lease payments without that income. So that's an issue that we're working our way through. But you know, as far as Abundant, and Melissa, again, chime in if I'm saying anything that's not accurate. Abundant is not willing to make those lease payments upon commencement of the lease. So what we're trying to do is limit the amount of time it's going to take for us to tie up the landfill without Abundant completing their project. Right now, it says the project has to be complete within 4 years. I think that's too long. I would like to reduce that to 3 years. But there are some milestones that they put in that they're going to try to meet. And they would meet those milestones before they get 2 years before they get financing. If they don't have the financing within 2 years, they would we would be able to get out of the lease. I'm concerned about construction and whether or not the 4 years that's in there now can be reduced to 3 years. So that's those are my main concerns. I was on the call, Ed was on the call, and Caitlin was on the call. So
also John was with us in that meeting.
Yeah. Yep. So is there anything that I've missed in terms of, that some of the changes were made, some of them were not made. I'm comfortable with the overall lease, except for that issue of construction being done in 3 years instead of 4 years. And the financing will be in place within 2 years.
May I interject here? Could
Sure.
I give some context? So I think we discussed this during the meeting, but for those of you who weren't able to attend, the concept is really this, that there are development stage activities, and a lot of those activities are subject to our interaction and our approvals from the utility. The utility is a pay-to-play scenario, so you can't go to the utility and ask them whether there's capacity available, what the cost will be to interconnect with the existing grid infrastructure, whether there'll be improvements that as a developer will be asked to finance in order to make that infrastructure more green energy ready, if you will. So there are some things that are a whole scale out of our control. What we have done is we've created a milestone plan that's now included in the agreement that you've seen as an exhibit that identifies the things that we have committed to do within a 2-year time cycle. And that is a tight timeline, given that our interactions with the utility can take, you know, 3/4 of that time. So there are prescriptions that have been given to the utilities by the PSC to really help developers have some expectation of responsiveness. And those things seem to have been working in the last year or so as they've gotten up to speed. Every now and then we get thrown a little curveball like a pandemic, and people either work from home or people aren't working quite at 100%. That certainly slowed us down in the spring of this year. But we're optimistic. You can't be in green energy without being an ultimate optimist. So we are optimistic that we won't see any stalls like that in the next year. And that would be the critical life cycle for our application to the utility. So our process and procedure is typically once we get a lease signed, then that actually gives us what the utility qualifies as site access. So we're not presuming that we have the right to the site. We actually have a signed and legal lease. And at that point, we can apply to the utility, and the utility puts us into a process. So they give us a preliminary report that tells us whether or not the substation is up to an infusion of power, which feeder we would use, which substation we would use, that type of thing. At that point, we have to make a judgment call, and then we have to make another investment in order to apply for the interconnection review process. That process takes 6 months. So the utility literally has all of our information, including our technical drawings and whatnot, in their purview behind the secret curtain for a relatively protracted period of time. And then they come back to us with a very specific prescription for where we can connect, how much power we can infuse into the existing grid, and what that cost will be. So that's a critical point for us, because that's kind of a go, no go. If they come back to us and say, this is a 4 megawatt array, you can only build 1 megawatt and it's going to cost you this, it's a fairly linear calculation for us as to whether or not that works or not, whether it breaks the back of the project. If they come back to us and say, we can accommodate 4 megawatts and the price is $500,000 to improve the feeder or to add some components to the substation, that's a much happier discussion. We can agree to that quite quickly. And then within 30 days of that, we actually have to make a deposit with the utility for that interconnection dollar value. And it's at that moment that we can really start to progress with other activities, surveys. We're going to have to go through a DEC review here because we need to get a post-closure landfill permit. But I'm happy to tell you that since our last conversation last week, we actually got 2 approvals, one for the Elbridge landfill site and one for the City of Auburn's closed landfill site. So we now know that the engineering partners that we're working with are doing the right things. They have the right relationships at the DEC, and we're seeing very timely, very prompt returns on those submissions that are very technical and very detailed. So all this to say that in that first 2-year period, we've made commitments to these milestones, and we believe that that is very doable. The 3rd year that Tim is referencing is really where construction, which should not take anywhere near a year, it needs to align with when the utility can actually interconnect us to the grid. So financiers frown upon the concept of building an array and having it sit fallow without the ability to interconnect and generate power and revenue. They really don't like that concept very much, as I'm sure you can understand. So in that last year, and we typically give ourselves 2 years wiggle room there, what we like to do is to line up with the utility, and we plan our construction when they're building, any poles or any extensions or doing any upgrades that we're actually financing. We try to mesh those 2 activities so that when we're finished, they're finished. We interconnect, we go through our testing, and then we have a productive and timely outcome where we start to sell subscriptions and actually put power into the grid. So I completely understand the perspective that you folks want to feel that we're being timely and efficient and focused. We want to be timely, efficient, and focused as well. So I think the compromise that we've discussed and that you would have seen in the revised lease agreement reflects that desire on our part and the sensitivity and need for some demonstration of what we're going to accomplish on our part, and that's found in the exhibit.
So if I might add just some context for all of this, the nature of this whole project is something that we've been discussing for a number of months now, and it's somewhat complicated when anyone is trying to develop a landfill for anything, much less a solar energy project. So it's not like a typical real estate development project. It's the finances of it and the way that these projects are funded and the tax equity and all the other components involved make it more difficult, especially because it's so cash intensive upfront. So the concerns that we had and the questions that we had were, if we're going to be leasing the land to anyone, why aren't they paying us to have leased it? It's a very reasonable question, and it was one that I was curious about too as we went into the meeting last week. And I felt that that question was answered handily, that if any solar developer trying to do a number of projects were paying lease payments on land, most of those projects won't move forward. It's really, really challenging to get a solar project all the way from the very beginning all the way to the very end, and it's interconnected and turned on and generating electricity. There could be a number of issues that come up that we won't even know yet. As Melissa pointed out, there could be interconnection costs that would require the developer, so Abundant Solar in this case, to pay $1 million to make the upgrades. That renders the projects financially unfeasible, at which point they would exit the lease arrangement, and we would know fully that this project won't move forward with Abundant or anyone else at this time with the way that the grid works now. So I felt like once we understood more about how these projects work and the way that they're financed, it helped us to better understand why we wouldn't be compensated upfront for the lease. We would be compensated at the time that it was interconnected and turned on and generating revenue for the business that's developing the project. The nature of the milestones I actually really, really appreciate, because we, in the meeting last week, one of the things that I made sure to mention is that this isn't like a an escape hatch or an escape clause. We're not trying to get out of this project. This is something we really want to do. We want solar on the landfill. But we also need to be mindful of the fact that we can't enter a lease arrangement for years and have nothing happen. That's not in the best interest of the residents of the town of Manlius. So by putting in these clauses, it helps all of us to have an understanding and a level of expectation about what's going to happen in that time. So if they're close to meeting a deadline, but they're not quite there yet, but we know they're trying really hard and there's something like a pandemic that's happened that's rendered all business obsolete for at least a little while, then we'll be understanding of that. We're not trying to get out of this. We're trying to make sure that it happens in a timely fashion. So I think that that's something that we all came to an agreement that this is the timeline and the time frame that made sense for all of us. And then the last question was regarding the pilot payment. After some discussion, it turned out it was mostly a communication error and some language that just needed to be cleaned up a bit. So by the time the meeting was done, we were on that Zoom call for quite a while, right, Ed? That wasn't the shortest meeting, but we all got on the same page, and I really felt comfortable that all of the questions had been answered. And I've tried to debrief as many of you as I can to make sure that you all understand. But certainly if you have any questions from kind of the town's perspective and the solar side of it, I'm happy to answer those for anyone. And then Tim certainly can speak to the legal stuff, and then Abundant and Chris Carrick is here from the planning board, can speak to kind of the development side.
I have a quick question for you, Melissa. Yeah, I know that there's different plans. You have the municipal, and then you have the community, which probably, do those require different avenues when it comes to working with the utilities, or is that process, are they different as far as speed when it comes to those two different programs?
Do you mean in terms of who the off-taker is for the power?
Yes, well, like I know DeWitt is just for them, just for municipality. I know that we're looking at community, all right?
Yeah.
I know we had the conversation, they're concerned with speed. You know, that's why they went with the other group.
Yeah. I would offer that they actually had a grandfathered remote net metering contract prior to the agreement that they moved forward with. So they actually had a real incentive to go with a previous regulatory model. And I think they made the right decision given that. I think the actual utility approval process is identical today because we don't have access to those grandfathered programs. Whether we would be giving all the power to the town or whether we are going to go out and develop a subscriber offtake. It's our responsibility as the developer to mesh those activities so that we have actually made the subscriptions available to residents of the area and have the subscriptions to support what we call offtake, people buying the power by the time we turn the site on. That's our responsibility. It doesn't actually delay the process. When we interconnect and the utility tells us we're going to interconnect, if we have those subscribers or not, our power is going into the grid. The issue for us is, are we actually being paid for it? So it's very much the onus is on us to make sure that we've been going through that subscription process in alignment with all the other more technical and construction oriented activities. They have to align all the way along.
One other question, when I spoke with the former and the present supervisors in Cicero, and they started out, I think, with you, and they went with another company, and I think they're leaving them now. But they were actually receiving a small rental stipend from one of the companies before the project, before they started, went into the project. Is that unheard of to receive something prior to the lease, prior to the total lease amounts being paid?
So it's not unheard of. There are I would say typically there are agreements that exist that were perhaps signed a year ago when the subsidy levels were higher, when the tax equity rate that we used to support these projects was 4% higher. The subsidies were about 20% higher, plus or minus, I think, 2%, depending on which tranche you were in. These projects are actually much tighter than folks believe they are. And so for us to be paying revenue before we even see the utility result. So we're applying for a nice size array where Manlius is concerned. It's 4 megawatts AC. That gives us some margin of scale in the build, design, and operations. We run into real problems when we're designing 1 megawatt or below projects because the cost of legal is the same whether it's a 4 megawatt project or a 1 megawatt project, as you can imagine. But we also run into issues where processes are slowed or through the pandemic, we definitely had elongated development processes where we're having to employ people and we can't see revenue. So right now we're at a bit of an inflection point where we're super sensitive to additional costs in a project. So I can't sit here today and tell you that these deals haven't been negotiated that way previously, but right now we're a little tender. And so this is the discussion that we had last week, and I'm hoping you can understand our sensitivity. It doesn't mean we'll be unmotivated. We are highly motivated to get projects to shovel in the ground at this point.
No, I appreciate that explanation. That clears up a lot, especially as we know economically and grant-wise and so on that's available. It does make sense, so I appreciate that. As Caitlin is aware of, and I think the board is that I did reach out, and I've mentioned this to 5 or 6 of the different municipalities. And, there was some concern with the timing, all right? And and also, we looked at some other companies and what they had to offer as far as their lease agreements. And I've come to the conclusion and discussing with Caitlin that yours does seem to be the best that we've been able to really negotiate here or work with you on. I'm happy with that, and I'm willing to go forward with that. I just maybe it's me, but I know you have put in certain exceptions, but are we looking at 3 years or 4 years? I guess that's sort of the bottom line. I just need to know what we're looking at.
So, the standard deal is 4 years, but I think what we've said is that we've committed to the development period being 2 years. So we're going to get you to, we'll be submitting a building permit.
Okay.
That's kind of what we call notice to proceed, or it's when we get financing money flowing into the project. We'll get you there in 2 years. Our goal would then be to, get the shovel in the ground as soon as possible, but that's where it gets out of our hands, if you will. So I think we told you a story last week about how, a hurricane in the Caribbean actually impacted the utilities' ability to get infrastructure. Like they couldn't get pieces of equipment. So I'm reticent to cut that period down. I think the period where developers fail their partners is actually in that development period where they either run out of cash flow or they get distracted by another project. What we're saying to you is, look, we've defined our milestones. We're really committed to getting those milestones done within the 2 years. And then we're going to do our very best to get the utility in line after we've accomplished a whole lot of heavy lifting in those first 2 years. But it really is somewhat reliant on what the utility can give us in terms of a timeline. And
those are really the milestones that Tim references and that you've given us in more detail, which weren't really there beforehand.
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, that was just added in the last week or so, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Again, just clarification for all of us. This is all new for most of us or all of us, except for maybe you, Kayla. Yeah.
So one thing I want to add for the benefit of anyone watching is Ed mentioned the notion that this is a community solar project and that it's different from the town of DeWitt. So if you are someone that frequents the Erie Canal, or if you drive by the Erie Canal, like heading out towards Shopping Town Mall, then you'll have seen all the solar panels in the field there. And DeWitt's project was developed for the benefit of the town of DeWitt and inadvertently the taxpayers that live in that community. And so they're offsetting all the usage of the town of DeWitt. DeWitt, the municipality, all the buildings, street lights, they've got a lot more that they own and that they have to pay their electricity bills on all those properties, all those lights. Their highway garage, the whole thing. So they really have a much higher usage than the town of Manlius does. And so when we looked at our property, we had to figure out how much could we fit on there, and then what is our usage, like what would be the best model for the town of Manlius. Due to the fact that there's some water on our landfill, there's some I don't want to say necessarily wetlands, but there's areas where it's really wet, and there are also areas where there's a lot of sloping. So we could fit 4 megawatts, which is still really great, even though we couldn't cover the whole landfill in panels. The town of Manlius doesn't use anywhere close to 4 megawatts of solar energy. And so it's something that when we looked at the project, if we had all this extra electricity that would be generated, what would we do with it at that point? It makes more sense to do a bigger project than a smaller project, as Melissa mentioned. So we are doing something different than DeWitt. Our panels are going to be shared with people in our community. So as the project gets developed and once everything is done and the electricity is turned on, the town of Manlius will sign a power purchase agreement with Abundant Solar, and then all these residents in the town of Manlius can also sign up to participate in the array as well. And so it's something that will allow all these people in our community, if you rent, if your house faces the wrong direction, or if you have a lot of shading, if you don't have space on your roof, if your roof is metal, like all these different things that prevent people from being able to go solar at home. It's actually a very small percentage of homeowners that can afford to do it or that have the right property to do it. You would be able to join the town of Manlius and participate and get all of your usage from your house or your business and offset all of your electric usage from this array. So that's really the biggest difference between our project and DeWitt's. Is ours is CDG, or Community Distributed Generation Community Solar Project. Theirs is a distributed generation project just for their own benefit. So we really got something that'll be really great for our whole community. Residents will be able to participate in it. I'm really looking forward to doing the presentations on that and enrolling people to participate in the project. But I think that Abundant Solar and the town of Manlius are on the same side. Like, we're not working in opposition to each other. The quicker the project gets developed, the more money they make and the quicker they make it. And the same for us. We'll be getting the benefit of the lease payments in addition to cheaper energy. The town of Manlius will get around a 10% discount on our electric bills. So we'll be saving the town money. We won't have to do any of the upfront developmental costs. That'll all be paid by Abundant. And we'll be able to provide this benefit to the town residents also at a reduced cost of around, is it 5% or 10%?
No, it's around 10% for the residential subscribers.
So that's something that the benefits, you're just like you're having your cake and eating it too across the board. And we're doing all of this on a piece of property that up until now has been nothing but a landfill and has really been a drain on our community's resources, as we've had to pay engineering costs to maintain it and to monitor it. So it's turning something that's a loss into a tremendous benefit for the town and the community and the residents in a multitude of ways, all while helping to offset carbon emissions and play a role in mitigating climate change in our community. So it's very exciting across the board, in my opinion.
Thank you, Caitlin. I know you're not passionate at all about it.
Maybe just a little bit. They don't call me Solar Kate for nothing, you know, Supervisor.
Just reach out to any of the board if you have any comments or questions. Otherwise, you know, we could, if you feel comfortable, we can move forward with the with approving the lease agreement. Anyone?
If no one has any further questions, I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the lease agreement with Abundant Solar to lease our landfill to Abundant for the purpose of developing a community solar project for the town of Manlius.
Mr. Supervisor, I do have a couple of questions I'd just like to bring to the attention of the board and the community of just some things to think about here, and maybe have our town attorney review them. But one of which is the premises and the easements. Going through this contract, there isn't a lot of specifics about how the access would be utilized. And it just is non-specific how much land it would actually take. I would just like to see more terminology that that it's mutually agreed instead of just by the tenant. I don't know, Tim, you might be able to take a look at that. And then with the installation work, Doug, I had a few questions because we are required to monitor that site and what type of adverse effect that would have on what you're required to do. Because it also states in, I think it's recital 5.1, that Abundant Solar would have, they'd be able to work without any limitation as far as grading, excavating, and what impact would that have to the site, and how would it be continued to be monitored?
I think the question, Karen, on the monitoring the site as far as excavating and so forth, and Tim, help me on this, or Doug, but I think that's the engineering firm that will be working with Abundant would be following those, the rulings, the environmental rulings that you have to have there.
If I may interject, so we've just gone through this process in the last 30 days with the DEC on another closed landfill, that being the Elbridge site on Peru Road. So we work with Barton LaJudas. They're a local engineering firm who've probably touched about 80% of the landfills in upstate New York at some juncture or another. They work very closely with the DEC from a number of different perspectives. And they created a 120-page submission for us for Elbridge, a very detailed report that touches on all of the issues that pertain to the security of the closed cap on the landfill. So what they do is they do a technical analysis of the loading that is created by the solar array. We don't use a pile-driven approach on landfills. We actually use pads that spread the weight and yet give you the kind of control over the panels that's required for wind and snow loading. It dissipates the weight on the cap of the landfill. So all of those technical calculations have to be passed by the DEC prior to getting the post-landfill closure permit. There's a whole new series of requirements from the DEC. It came out in January of 2020. So we're working to, it's called the draft requirement list at this point, but it will be adopted fully at some point in the near future. We are working to qualify every single site that we do on a landfill to those requirements. And we've been successful on both the Elbridge and the Auburn City landfill. We got those two permitting letters last Friday, I'd be happy to share those with you. Or if you'd like to see the nature of the detailed report that we submitted for those sites, they're public information. I could share those to give you more comfort. With respect to the definition around the space, you know, most of the work that's been done to date has in fact been desktop analysis and design work. We obviously get out on the site, but that's been somewhat curtailed during the pandemic. However, once we have the lease signed and we get a confirmation from the utility in terms of the scale, we do actually do a complete ALTA survey. Part of those attributes are a new legal description. And we would be happy to share that new survey of the space that we will lease with the town as well at the appropriate time. So it's not that the site plan actually gives you a fairly literal indication of where the array will be positioned. But if you're looking for that more detailed legal description, that just comes a little later in the process.
Thank you, Melissa. Tim, did you want to add anything? Karen's questions?
No. Like I said, I think that the lease itself is in good shape. If you do move forward with this tonight, there are just some cleanup legal things that I want to have authority to work out with Abundant. So you can make it contingent on legal approval.
So
I can add that.
to follow up on Karen's point, though, that Exhibit A is essentially blank. Will you fill that in with something, or is that what Melissa said would be done after she has permission to survey the property?
Sorry, I'm probably looking at the back side of a page. Is Exhibit A the supposed to be? Pardon me? Meets and bounds. Yeah. So what we would typically do is we would provide you with a detailed site plan, which I thought I had in this package.
It is A1.
Yeah, and the site plan occupies that space in lieu of the meets and bounds until we can provide it. So we're obligated to provide.
Okay, all right, that explains it. I just, when you see a blank page in a contract, I sort of hesitate to sign it. So.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think, as you all know, we're the engineer of record for the town of DeWitt solar project. And to Karen's question, it would probably be a ballasted system. We've met with the DEC on your Manlius landfill also. And we've also met with Abundance engineer on site, Barton and LaJudas, Tim Boland. And we provided Tim a map of the site and some of the requirements that DEC has told us. And that should be included as attachment A1. And you know, some of the requirements that we're going to have moving forward would be spacing around the vents so that we could get in and monitor the air like we usually do. And we also, the Manlius landfill, unlike the DeWitt landfill, does not have an access road around the landfill. So at some point we would have to have some type of an access to get, you know, a half-ton pickup truck around so that we can go around. We monitor approximately 12 wells on the Manlius site and another 7 or 8 gas vents. So, you know, it's just, you know, the devil's in the details. It's not a big deal, but we just have to have that moving forward. And yeah, we've coordinated that with Jim Groupie and Tim Boland, and Melissa should have a copy of that. I know Tim has it if you don't.
Yeah. The other thing that we would add that would become incremental to this, should you approve the concept of moving forward, is that we would actually draft a specific easement agreement that would speak to the road access that you'd be approving for us to use, as well as where we would interconnect when that is confirmed with the utility. So we would want those things to be crystal clear for both parties. They're indicated on the site plan design, But we would add, the easement agreements are not lengthy. They're about 3 or 4 pages, but we would add that level of specificity to give everyone comfort and to steer us in the right direction.
And could that be done with the safety element of it too? The, what type of mechanisms are used around the site?
Do you mean from a fencing perspective?
Right, right. I didn't see any specifics on that.
Yeah, so
Maybe,
we'll fence the boundary of the array. It sometimes gets a little larger than the array itself when on top of a landfill. It's a balance between doing a ballasted fence and doing a perimeter fence, but we'll have those discussions and come to an agreement on that. There is a requirement from the electrical code vis-a-vis the height of the fencing. So we conform to the code. I believe it's 7 feet. We've had some back and forth in places where deer are apparently very tall jumpers in your neck of the woods.
10 feet.
Yeah, and there are, we're not so alarmed that they get in, but that they can get out too, right?
Good.
So
Right.
there are options to build fences to heights and then put barbed wire on top. My preference personally would be no barbed wire so that the deer don't get stuck. They can get in, they can get out, and then everybody's more or less happy.
Would the fencing end up looking pretty close to what DeWitt's looks like?
I have not been to DeWitt since they've fenced, but we can do either frost or farm fencing. It's really designed to keep humans out, not animals.
Doug, are you?
Caitlin?
That?
Yeah,
Oh.
the DeWitt landfill does not have any fencing.
I didn't think so.
Okay.
No, I didn't
We
think so.
have the fencing from the Part 360 closure, but as far as the National Electric Code, we took other measures to meet the NEC
Right.
code rather than putting up, the fencing that we didn't think would really benefit that much. And from an aesthetic standpoint and from a wildlife standpoint, what we wanted to promote on the DeWitt landfill was the free propagation of wildlife across the entire landfill. In fact, we have some species on the landfill that we have birdhouses and other things up there. So that was a key component that we looked at in DeWitt. And we could certainly do that.
It is site dependent, right? So this is the type of thing that we would discuss and resolve in the planning board review.
But the code does not require that you have to have
Okay, great.
fence around it, right? Because now with the new inverters on the backs, if everything's enclosed, it's an NEC safety issue. That's what we would look at.
Okay.
But to that point, we do, and Rob can attest to this. We do have many people that use that landfill that walk from Bowman Road over
Right.
to the canal.
Right.
So that would have to be something that we would have to address also, because we wouldn't want them going in and out of the arrays.
Indeed, Doug. Right.
Well, it sounds like this is all something that we can address once we have more details from the site plan and everything.
Absolutely. Yep. Devil's in
And
the
then there
details.
was just one other comment I had. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware. In regard to the extension term, there wasn't any type of rate that was noted or how it would be calculated. So it's just left vacant. But again, with attorney review, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention.
I think we've gone over all those numbers. You're talking about the lease numbers, Karen? Because that has been.
No, in the event there's an extension.
Of the 4 years.
It is, I'll tell you, recital 3.2 under extension term.
Mm-hmm.
This has been my late night reading for 2 nights.
Sorry about that.
Really sorry about that, Karen.
I thought it continued, Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it says the same terms.
Right.
For the extra 5 years, so.
Yeah.
% each.
But I think actually, should we ask Caitlin to amend her motion to add attorney review, and then we need a second.
Yeah, I can,
That's,
I'll alter my motion if we're ready to move forward.
that good, Tim, with what, just your recommendations that, Caitlin amends her motion?
Karen, are you all set? Did you have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
I'd
Oh.
like to, oh,
Nope, that's okay. Go ahead, Caitlin.
no, Tim, you go first. What?
I really, yeah, I think we understand the concept. I'm not going to be looking at economic terms. I'm not going to be looking at anything like that. We're just going to be looking at some cleanup legal fees to make sure we are all on the same page.
Right.
So the economic terms are the economic terms. That's what we try to do better, but we weren't successful.
Well, I think that we were successful, Tim.
Well, okay.
I think
With
that,
that, I would second Councilor Creasel's motion.
oh, thanks, John. I'll let me start over and then you can second it, John. You can be Solar John, I'll be Solar Kate. So, Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to sign the lease agreement with Abundant Solar, pending further legal review by our wonderful attorney, Tim Vertesky, to put a community solar project on the landfill in the town of Manlius.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Melissa. That's real Chris down there now. I've been looking at your picture. See you.
Hi, folks. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Melissa, for answering everyone's questions and for helping us to become more environmentally sustainable and financially sustainable in the town of Manlius.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Forward to working with you.
Yep.
Yes.
We'll sign off now.
Okay,
Good night.
very good.
So, Mr. Supervisor, could we also move the agenda around to do the code change so that Attorney Sutphen can leave?
She's used to hanging out for a while.
Love
What are you
solar.
talking about? Jamie, you all right with staying around? And we'll be moving through these other ones pretty quick, I would think.
Whatever is your pleasure, Mr. Supervisor.
I'd rather go by the agenda we set up. If that's all right, Sarah. We already moved them away from 11 all the way up to number 4.
Sarah.
Yeah, these shouldn't be too long, Sarah. I mean, really, we've got the next is item 5, the memorandum of understanding with the Joint Salt Springs Water Project. I think you all have that MOU. And along with a legal services engagement agreement. I know that the MOU, we were almost certain we already approved this earlier in the year, but apparently I guess we didn't. And I think all of the participants in the Aqua as well as Sullivan, they thought that it was approved too. So I think we're all on board with that. I think the new thing is really the legal engagement agreement service. And Tim, that I know we spoke about it, and it seems to meet the necessary requirements for an agreement.
It's a standard retainer agreement with them charging, I think it was $180 an hour for the work that they'll be doing.
170.
Costello, Cooney, and Farron has extensive experience in creating districts, special districts. So I think they'll do a great job.
It is $175 an hour. Just to
175.
Yep. And again, it's one of those situations, of course, where the budget process will have to. We talked about how this will be budgeted, and we can discuss that at another time. Sarah, you and Ann and I can get together on that and explain to you how that we would look at doing that.
Yeah, Yes, so I'd like to, if you're ready, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the MOU and the legal services engagement for the Salt Springs Water District.
Yeah, we should do them on separate motions.
Okay.
Cover the MOU.
Yeah, I just had one question on that, Sarah. Is there an upper limit on the fee for the attorneys at all?
There's a separate, there's a clause in there that if it goes over $1,000 that it gets reviewed, so that it's not automatically just whatever they come up with, that it comes back to authorize if it's more than 1,000.
It has to be pre-approved, Karen. So there's a contingency. So we have a motion for the MOU. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Carried. All right, very good. And now we can move on to the attorney legal services.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign legal services engagement with Costello, Cooney, and Fearon for the water project.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Very good. All right, got that. All right, next in line is the, we have, well, we had a good class on this at our last board meeting. This is the CIRO agreements for FM, Fayetteville Manlius, as well as East Syracuse Manoa. We'll split them up. I think we've all seen these contracts, and this is for the resource officers in Fayetteville Manlius, which is Officer Palmer, Phillip, and Golden. Any questions on the contracts? Yes, Elaine.
I just had one question on the East Syracuse one. I mean, they're pretty much similar, almost exactly the same, but that one doesn't have 5.5, which on FM does, and I was wondering if it's too late, could we change that, or?
Chief, are you familiar with?
It's just, it talks about how they should not detain or question students about their immigration status.
Is that in, and that's on the Fayetteville Manlius?
It's in the FM one, but it's not in the East Syracuse one. So I just, as far as I could tell.
I don't think it'll be a problem to add that. Do you, Chief?
No, and in addition to that, we have our own general order to send.
Okay, that's what I thought too, but yeah, I just saw the difference. I didn't know.
Yeah, no, that's good, Elaine. I didn't notice that. That's a good catch. Right. Okay. So if there's no further comments or concerns, we'll need a motion for me to sign the documents for the resource officer agreements. We'll start with Fayetteville Manlius Schools.
Do these need to be done separately?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Officers, Tim, do we need to split it between each office?
Well, as presented, as presented.
Okay, all right, that'll be good.
All right, I'll be happy to make that motion then for the supervisor to enter into agreement with the Fayetteville Manlius School District with the Town of Manlius Police CIROS officers.
As presented, right?
As presented. Mm-hmm.
So I need a second.
I'll second.
Seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. And the same with the East Syracuse Manoa Resource Officer with that's with Rebecca Kamar. I never get her. Kamar, right? Am I doing that right, Ann?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion for you to enter into agreement with the East Syracuse Manoa School District and the Town of Manlius Police Department for the Office of CIRO Officer.
And that would be with the discussion regarding the 5.5 in the contract. Okay, very good. And we'll need a second on that.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Excellent. All right, and now pretty easy ones here too. I know that Sarah, I believe you reached out to all the mayors on this.
Yes, I did, and all three of them said they were available, so I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for the Manlius Fire District for September 23rd
What time do you want to put that for, Allison? Do it 6:35 or something like that? Or what?
at 6:35.
And
I'll second.
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried?
And Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to set a public hearing date of 9/23 at 6:40 for the Fayetteville Fire District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Very good.
And Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to set the date for the public hearing regarding the Manoa Fire District for 6:45 on September 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Well done. And here we are.
Thank you.
For the modified existing commercial zoning code. We went pretty fast. So, all right, Jamie. I think we kept you long enough there. Right? So, Sarah, this is you or Jamie want to give the overall presentation? I know you sent the information out to all of us for review.
So I just wanted to remind anybody who's been not following this closely, this is the outgrowth of the Planning Process Committee. We've had a couple of different results from this work, and the one we're going to discuss today is the commercial zoning change. So it's only commercial zones. And we've been debating some pros and cons of different ways to do it. And there was a public information meeting on July 22nd about it. And Jamie has since taken that public input, and we have revised the code, and I will turn it over to Jamie to discuss the attachment.
So can we, Allison, were you going to pull up, I guess the main code part?
Yes, so you did want to do a presentation on that this evening?
Is that what we wanted to do, Sarah? To look at
Well, I think we can reference the fact, if you want to just pull it up to see how much is read, people can read it at their leisure.
Right.
Sure. But I think we just wanted to frame with people of what was changed.
Sure.
So just
Give me
in
one
real
moment.
summary, it looks like a lot was changed, when in reality, what happened and the upshot of what we were doing was pulling the uses out of the words and making it an appendix. And there are towns where you see that done. And it was a very meticulous process. So when you start reading the code sections, you start reading about CA or CB, then the uses are literally pulled right out of the words. So I guess you don't really need to pull it up if everybody has already seen it. Oh, there she is.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, this red part, this first part is a brand new district that has been added, and if you follow and start at the transitional business district, the new district, it's going to be what I'll call to the left of the continuum. And when you go down the continuum all the way to industrial, being the least restrictive, and this new district being the most. Then the next one is the neighborhood shopping district. And what you see in red is new, and it just talks about some of the design criterion. And then you see a lot of things crossed out. That's just mainly the uses. And that goes all the way down to each of the areas. Some of the purposes of the district, we wanted to beef up the wording. So you'll see some what I'll call beefed up wording about kind of the purpose of the regional shopping district and the purpose of the CA district, et cetera.
And I think that was especially true in CA and CB. Those were, very old wording from the dawn of zoning, and they were not very specific. So you'll see that when we get down to there, that it changed. Just to clarify what was omission, it wasn't that we changed what was there. There was nothing there. So this looks more dramatic than it is. I guess that's what Jamie's point is that we're really not changing much.
Yeah, right.
We're mainly crossing off things and beefing up the purpose a little bit. I hope that, you know, as a board, that everyone does particularly look at the purpose and intent of each district and the way it's written now, because as our little committee said, at the end, we were most pleased with ourselves, but no one else has really examined it. So, you know how it is when you're on a committee and you're working away, you're like, yes, this is so ready, until someone else looks at it, and we're totally open to that.
Yep.
I think I came in at the very end, of course, after you'd done all the work and started messing about and asking questions. And I wonder if it would be, for people who are more visual too, should we look at the grid?
Yes, I wanted to.
That would be really helpful.
Right, and again, just
I know, Allison, thank you.
Yeah, this committee really started a couple of years ago. John Loeffler had been on the committee, and Rich Rossetti had been on the committee, and they also had, you know, input. We didn't really get into the real down and dirty though until more recently. But the idea of kind of the continuum of uses was a brainchild of John Loeffler, actually, and it's worked quite well for us, and we really fed into that. So Allison, can you pull up the uses?
I have some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just, okay, so, and I just completely lost my questions, but
okay,
they come back.
It'll come back. Allison, if you can throw up the chart. So
I think she's working on it. This is not the public hearing, Elaine, so you have plenty of time to think of questions.
So that was, I guess that's my question, is I have lots of thoughts and I've just seen this. Oh, that was one question. So we know neighborhood shopping, we have neighborhood shopping, but it's not used. So my question is, what is the need or reason?
There is a plaza that is neighborhood shopping currently.
Right, like one. So
Right.
that's, I'm just wondering, why are we adding another one if it's not a popular zone currently?
Well, we certainly have to regulate what we've got, and it is a zone, and it is there, and it's on our zoning maps. So we're dealing with it also, and as this board has seen, there have been some requests for zone changes. So it's possible someone would want to change a zone, or that we would look at that in a comprehensive way. So it's there, and you know, we're making sure it's reflective of what would be expected.
My other question is, we have code 360. It works really well. To take out the uses in text form and then make them go to a separate chart is a lot to ask. I mean, maybe not for developers, but even like, we just changed the zone for Enders Road. People were instantly like, well, what does that mean? What can go there? It was really easy to send them to 360 and they could see it listed what could be there. So I am cautious of removing that. I think we could add the table, but I don't know if we need to remove the uses from the text. I don't know how it will look in 360, I guess that's my concern.
It will be, this chart will be in 360, but I hear that concern, and we'll talk about it further.
Okay, thank you.
I understand that. It's valid, and you know, let's look at that. But I think if you search a use, we'll see. We'll talk to the code. We'll talk to the code people to see what the best way would be to search.
I will say I have been working with the folks that do Code 360 on a different project, and I do think if we express that, like, hey, there's another table or an appendix that we think is incredibly relevant, I have a feeling we'd be able to add like a link or something that would make it a little bit easier.
That's what I would be hoping for, is where it says it would be a hyperlink right there and you could check.
That's just my,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not like it's not something that we get out of the box, and it's receiving updates pretty regularly. So if that's a concern, I think we'll be able to find a solution to present it cleanly to them.
Yeah, I totally hear that, Elaine. And while you're looking at this in the next, Sarah will put forth what kind of the whole schedule is for, it's going to go to planning board for discussion and recommendation. It's going to go to zoning board. It's going to come back here. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for input on a lot of levels. But if you look at the categories and the way we've set them up, I hope it becomes clear and that you really, really let us know if it's not. It's really important, to try to get this right, because while I know that this board has really wanted to have a comprehensive plan, this is also part of, comprehensive planning, because as each of these uses are looked at, there's been discussion about, what are these uses and where do they fit into our town? And we've looked at the zoning map to, see what we've got and make sure that what we've got there fits. Because if it's not in the X's as an allowed use, it ends up being grandfathered, right? And that's a whole different thing, non-conforming use. So
that's my other question too, is because we are hoping to go through the comprehensive land use planning, how does this fit in? Like, are we going to potentially make these changes and then have to make more changes as we go through those comprehensive a land use plan? And I'm concerned too, by just looking at the commercial zoning and not looking at residential, like, are we you know what I mean? We're just
So Elaine, we do plan to do residential. We're doing one thing at a time. Can't do everything at once.
But that's my concern, and I don't know, I'm still looking and researching zoning as much as I can, but that's my concern, is that if we're not looking at it as zoning as a whole, will it be not as...
So I would say this, the plan of this group is that nobody's zone changes.
Okay.
And that's why we're looking, if there's something that exists in Manlius today where there's not an X on it being permitted, we want to know. Because the goal of this was to change nothing in terms of actual land use until we go through the comprehensive plan and say we want something different. What we wanted to do is articulate what is our current zoning, because it was not clear.
Yes, there were some ambiguities in it, and there were just straight up like uses that don't really exist, or there's new kinds of uses that are better described here. So also part of your package is, you'll notice there's definitions, that we now have new definitions for things, or things that were missing definitions.
Yeah. So I would like to, Elaine, do you have any other questions?
I have one more thing. Okay. So if we are going to make a public hearing for this, right now what's on the website is just the text. So we don't have access to the table and we don't have access to the definition. So we need to make sure that all of that is presented to the public so they can review it and let us know what they think.
Thank you. We are.
Yes, Randy.
And then, so I would like to make a motion to set a public hearing date of September 23rd. And I'm going to suggest 7:30 because we know the fire budgets will take an hour. And then say that to review this, we will not vote on it the 23rd.
Okay.
This will be an opportunity for public comment.
Do we want to do that many hearings in one night?
Well,
like, weren't we trying not to do that? Not that we don't all love hanging out until midnight, but just.
I think that's a good question, Caitlin. I think, Sarah, our experience, and Karen, with the fire budgets is they're presented, individually. The numbers are pretty clear. And you may just have some individual questions for the mayors that they would be able to explain to you. But it's not that there's a lot that can be changed with the fire budget. So I mean, you know, they are what they are, you know, and it might only take, you know, 5 minutes each, but you never know. Our board may want more questions to be asked. So Sarah, how do you feel about
I
that?
think we may or may not, I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're a group that tends to be more verbose. I'm not sure, but I'm like leaning toward that.
I mean, I think that we should do the public hearing now because it's also going to the planning board where I believe it will also have a public hearing.
It won't
No.
have a public hearing, but it will have a discussion and they'll come up with, you know, a recommendation. Because that's one of the things that planning board does is recommends on planning issues. So.
Right.
Well, it would take us into mid-October too, if we waited.
Yeah.
The way the month falls, it would be
Also,
mid-October.
I do want to point out, like we have been, you know, continuing public hearings. So if we schedule it for 7:30 and we think there's 3 hours of questions, we could always just say like, we'll take the brunt of questions, and then it'll also give us time to maybe bring some answers back and then continue the public hearing at the next meeting.
I think that's
yeah.
I do think that this people will be interested in this topic. So I hopefully there'll be good responses and people will have questions and feedback.
This might require us doing a little bit of outreach because when we generally listed the topic for the public information meeting, we did not have very many people, right? And we even had reached out to developers and others. So one of the things we can do is ask for coverage on social, you know, or well, put it out on social a little bit with some color attached in terms of, you know, help people get in the mindset of thinking about what this is. And then, yeah, so I guess, do we have it's like the bandwidth. Do we have the bandwidth to do that for another month and try to actually yield some people, or, you know?
Well, part of my concern is we have public hearings for the budget coming up, so we're going to have a public hearing every time anyway.
Yeah.
There, if I can address one thing that Elaine was saying.
Yes, Randy.
If I could address one thing that Elaine had concerned about. One of the main reasons why the committee started was the public was confused. They read our code, and our office was getting, and still is, inundated with phone calls about a piece of property zoned whatever. What can I do on that property? So one of the goals of the committee was to make it clear and easy for the public to read. And by doing a flow chart, which John started, now it's easy. Someone can look under, we'll say commercial A, go down the list and see if what they're looking for is applicable to that zoning. And that was one of the main goals of the chart, was just to cut back on some of the phone calls coming back in, because people just got confused when they read the code itself. So we were trying, like Jamie said, we were trying to clarify that to make it easier for people to follow what they were actually looking for in the code. That's why the chart is a big part of what we're doing.
And
Randy's also been floating in and out of the committee for a couple of years as well.
And to John's point, you know, the most questions may be from us. You know, we may not have that many public, as Heather pointed out at our information meeting. I don't remember how many people were on that were public. But I think if we are the ones that are going to have more of the questions, I would recommend that we get those to Sarah and Jamie long before this next meeting, so that we're prepared and we can condense that public hearing, as John said, a little shorter, and then we can keep it open one more meeting if the public has any other comments or questions. You know,
thank you. That's a really good point, and we would really appreciate anybody's comments ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to mention that I thought is better on the chart than was in the words was, you're going to see various asterisks like, yes, you can do this, but it needs a special permit. Then we have a new area in industrial, which is you can do this, like you can build your house in an industrial, not really a house, that wasn't one of the uses, but we're going to let you know that a factory could be built next door. Like there's now an obligation on the part of the town to, you know, really make it a place where it's going to be much better from a planning standpoint. Because if someone is kind of dumb enough to build a brand new, beautiful mansion in an industrial district, then you got to know that you could have a factory next to you, you know, and I think that just helps planning overall. So
I think with that, we have a motion on the floor by Sarah. Do we have a second for the?
I'll second it.
All in
That's
favor?
for the 23rd.
23rd, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Thank you. And again, just not to beat this to death here, but when we started this over 2 years ago, and you had a good point, Jamie, it was sort of a scaled down version of a comprehensive plan where there was some concerns, as Randy pointed out, with some real questions of between CA and CB, and is there anything in between, you know, and that's where a lot of the different looks, you know, at the transitional commercial and neighborhood shopping, and then it just got even more involved this past year. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for really, you know, committing yourself to this committee, and I think it's really helpful, and it's a good sort of a kickstart, Heather, if you think about it, for part of your comprehensive plan as you go forward. You know.
Absolutely. You know, Sarah, I sort of drafted Sarah to be my partner because she is an incredible natural project manager. And I think that it's also great to have that continuity of someone who really understands, you know, these conversations that have happened for the last couple of years, for just as you reference, you know, it's good to understand the intent so that as new things emerge, we also know, oh, well, this is a new question we're answering. But I think it's good for the town. I mean, we were having conversations about things that people are curious about, like artisan. You know, if you're an artisan, where do you fit? You know, is there a district where you fit in if you do like manufacturing or you know, sculpting or whatever with machinery? And, you know, how are we handling food trucks and pop-up shops and things like that? So those are the kinds of things that are kind of sexy topics and interesting to the general public. They're buzzy, but they could maybe help us draw in a little bit of attention to the meat and potatoes of it, which is, you know, what. Let's help Randy not get as many calls, or have people have more specificity when they ask a question.
So we are planning a communication strategy, and I will work with you, Heather.
Very good, thank you. And we'll move on. By the way, I think that's the first I've ever heard sexy topics mentioned at our board meeting. But
yeah. Aim to please.
We've had a lot of firsts, you know, so let's move on to correspondence here.
I'll let you go to correspondence. I am going to leave the meeting, and I thank you. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Great to see you.
All right. And Rob, you are up. Are you up?
I'm not sure I can follow Heather. That's for darn sure.
Some people think paving is very sexy, Rob. Don't worry.
Well, anyway, the comprehensive planning topics in any capacity could be honestly called sexy topics, and I completely 100% agree with you. And paving, I mean, come on, like it's good stuff. Like that's what we're all here
for. No doubt. Anyway, we're finishing up our paving season. Actually, we've got maybe 1 or 2 projects. I know we're doing a little work with the Village of Fayetteville right now, right in front of Town Hall. Unfortunately, the timing's not the best with the tax. You know, going on, people paying for their taxes. So hopefully we'll be done with that tomorrow if all goes well, if the weather's with us. But other than that, guys, I really don't have anything tonight. It did snow in Denver, so it's not that far off. And unfortunately, we will be tearing trucks down here within the next couple of weeks to start heading towards winter here again. So with that being said, I guess I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Rob. And I think that snow followed 90-degree temperatures when it went to the snow. It was crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I have an FM alum friend Chrissy, who posted a picture from Colorado Springs. Couldn't believe it.
Crazy. Randy, what do you have for us tonight?
I don't have too much tonight, Ed. Everything's moving along. A lot of projects in the works and plugging away.
Very good. Tim?
I have nothing other than we'll have to go into executive session tonight to discuss collective bargaining agreement.
Very good. Allison?
I have one item. The very exciting topic of records management. The New York State governs what records you can keep and what records you can destroy, the length of time you have to keep them, things like that. They do that through something called the MU1 schedule. That MU1 schedule has not been updated since 2003, and they've just released a new edition. So I've presented everyone with a resolution to adopt the new MU1 schedule. So I would just ask for a motion to adopt the MU1 as presented.
Okay, very good.
I would make a motion to adopt the MU1 record standard.
Yeah, I'd second the motion, please.
Oh, okay, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Excellent. Thank you, Allison. What else? Okay. Allison, you're good?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. All right. Okay, Chief, what do you have for us this evening?
Just a few items. Continue to work with the district attorney and the countywide plan for law enforcement reform.
Cutting in and out, Chief.
What's that?
You were cutting in and out. Maybe get a little closer. There we go.
Continue to work with the DA with the Executive Order 203 on law enforcement reform. We canvassed the list for a sergeant. We have a sergeant's opening, and I'm prepared to do interviews next week to fill that vacancy, as well as we'll be canvassing the list for a police officer to fill those vacancies coming up. And lastly, thank you for the supervisor, deputy supervisor, and Councilor Bollinger for stopping by the current work environment for the police department. I moved into the double wide trailer. You can come by and look at my plush office if you like. And we're getting through it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good, Chief. Yeah, it's quite a project over there, and I'm glad it's working out for you the best it can. And the double way was actually not too bad, right? So, Ann, town manager, what do we have for us? I know you have a couple of things.
One housekeeping item. We have a small account with Key Bank, a capital account. We just need to update the account signers. So I would request a motion designating the supervisor and deputy supervisor as signers for that account.
I would make a motion to make the supervisor and deputy supervisor signers for that Key Bank capital account, please.
Second. Jan, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. Anything else, Ann? That was it?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, town board, we go around the room, I suppose. Sarah, you want to start us out?
Thank you. So a couple of things that I've been doing since the last meeting was we did have another meeting with the Salt Springs Water District, and we met with two of the landowners who will be impacted by having infrastructure put on their property. And there's a third landowner that I've reached out to and haven't heard back from yet. But I believe that's coming along pretty well. We also had a meeting at Town Hall with regard to some stormwater management planning. And we do plan to invite the public who are residents of Storm District 1, I'm sorry, not 1, 2 and 3, to meetings in October to learn about plans that we are hoping to do in 2021 and 2022 with regard to stormwater management, and just to have the residents of those districts understand what comes first or not and get their input onto that. So we're planning those in early October. More to follow about that. They will not be hearings, they'll just be public information meetings. And then the planning process committee that we've already discussed. So thank you.
Very good, Sarah. Excellent. John.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that we're in the end stages before the release of our map, our zoning map that'll be online and interactive. We're in a review process right now. What I could say is it's really interesting to be able to see the zoning kind of live as is. There's a lot of complexity to it. I'm really happy, especially with the changes we're discussing, and kind of as we move towards the comprehensive plan, to put a lot of these more tech pieces in place, so that the average resident doesn't have to read through however many pages of the code. They can consume this information in a much easier way. That's going to make this whole process a lot easier. Some other tech stuff in the background. We're obviously working towards how to do more in-person meetings. It looks like we're going to be bringing some of the other boards in person first, and looking to a strategy to get us back in person when it's reasonable, and just a lot of stuff like that. And I'm very much enjoying the budget process so far, and I'm looking forward to more of it.
And John, I know we spoke about the trying to go live again at some point. You're working on some more quotes, I think, for some of the.
Yeah, we'll be doing another visit with another company so we can get some reasonable quotes, see what our options are, and then we can have a pretty frank discussion about weighing all the options as far as everything goes. And I think the biggest questions really now are public hearings. To be able to get folks into town hall is going to be a challenge to get, and quite honestly, with the Zoom and our Boxcast system, don't really commingle. You can feed the Boxcast stream into a Zoom, which might be the option if we want to get in person. You're still going to lose a lot, but basically, once we have all the options on the table, it's just going to be weighing everything and making sure that the quality of these meetings as consumed by our residents doesn't take too much of a hit in the hope of getting back in the room. But like I said, public hearings are going to be a real big question. We did do the budget meetings to go over the preliminary budgets, in person. It seemed to work pretty well, although, not as attended as a normal town board meeting that we do by Zoom. But we'll keep plugging along and making sure that everybody can participate, in a way that they feel safe and comfortable with.
Well, I know you're staying on top of it. I appreciate that, and just keep us in the loop on those numbers, and how you come out. Elaine.
Thank you. So we had a great first meeting for the Public Safety Advisory Committee 2 weeks ago, last two Thursdays ago. It was a good meeting. We'll be meeting again in 2 weeks on September 24th. Now we've requested data and policies from Chief Kroll, and he's working with us, which is great. Thank you so much. And we are in the Public Safety Advisory Committee. We're collecting questions and ideas from our community. So if you go on to our website at townofmanlius.org, under committees, you'll find the Public Safety Advisory Committee listed. And you can find we have a form up there on our website, and you can fill it out. All we're asking is if you have any questions or any ideas or comments. That's all we're looking for. And any information you want to provide, you can, but it's not necessary. We just want to know what our community wants to know, so we can use that information to guide us and to focus our work as we go through this process on the Executive Order 203.
Very good. Thank you. And Karen?
I do. As most of you know, we had approximately 9,000 school tax bills go out, which means there will be a lot of people coming into Town Hall, and Lori Peschel, our receiver of taxes, has done a great job strategizing how to best handle all of these people coming in with the social distancing. We're working very hard at accommodating everyone in an expeditious manner. And she would just like to encourage people to perhaps pay by mail, just so there won't be a long line. But she and Sharon are doing a tremendous job, and keeping everyone safe as well. So my hat goes off to that department. And we just need to go into executive session as well for recreation.
Yep, employee review.
Yeah, employee related. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Caitlin.
Thank you, Supervisor. The last couple weeks have been definitely environmentally sustainability filled. We've got a lot of different irons in the fire on that front. So a lot of work on the solar lease that we've already addressed so far this evening. And then I had a meeting with Allison and Elaine and Ryan Dunn, who is the chair of the Sustainable Manlius Committee. And we were able to set a date for what's actually only officially our second meeting, because we had to cancel that back in March. And we've done a lot along the way, but we haven't had a chance to actually get the committee together. So we're finally we had hoped to be able to do it in person, but since that's going to continue to get pushed out, we decided to go ahead and figure out how to do this meeting over Zoom as well. So that will be on October 1st at 7 o'clock, and we'll be sending out that email to anyone that's interested. I believe you can sign up for Sustainable Manlius on the website as well. That's correct? Okay. Yeah, so you can go to the website to sign up if you want to be notified of those meetings and included in the meeting. The conversation we had was really, really productive. We are really going to be focusing on the Climate Smart Communities pledge that we took earlier this year on Earth Day, as I recall, or near Earth Day, and we'll be able to start actually moving that forward in a more tangible way. There's all these different actions we need to take to continue moving the community forward. The pledge was really the first step. So we're going to take Sustainable Manlius and really make it the Climate Smart Communities Committee to really get that ball rolling. So we're looking forward to that meeting in October and getting that process underway. And then the budget meetings, which I also found really enjoyable, really, really interesting. And I'm looking forward to working with all you and our department heads to put together the budget for the community for next year. And I'd really encourage everyone in the town to pay attention to this. This is one of the most important components, the taxpayer dollars. How are we actually going to spend those? So I'm hoping that people watch the hearings and participate in the public information sessions and get educated on that. Thank you.
And Heather.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to wish all of the teachers and families that are getting their students ready for back to school this week in our districts, FM and ESM, all the other schools that our students attend, including BOCES and private schools and parochial schools. I just wanted to thank educators and hardworking administrators and staff and transportation folks. I was delivered my little clear box for Riley from the transportation team, and on Wednesdays we get to see them, and I know Riley will love to stand outside and wave to those folks. So just wanted to thank everybody for their hard work and their dedication. They have been laser focused on opening, and I just think the world of them. So just a shout out to all of them, and a thank you to our Board of Education for at FM and I'm sure ASM too for being partners with us and engaged with us. Also, the Tree Commission will meet again on September 15th at 5 p.m. That's the annual monthly meeting. On September 16th, I wanted to remind people about the virtual fun run. You can sign up by September 16th to join Ed and his grandkids, I am sure, and his family. And I would love all of us as a group to consider participating in this special event that promotes wellness and engagement in being outdoors in our beautiful, beautiful town. And of course, looking ahead, just wanted to remind folks that Wicked Woods is going to be in a different format. I know Karen and I were so excited to hear about from Peggy, the innovative approach they're taking that's really intergenerational and inclusive for people, because folks will be coming to campsites and decorating them in a spooky manner. And then you'll be able to drive through with a fun bag of treats to enjoy the spooky campsites on October 24th. So you can still make a donation to the food bank when you come into the park. And I think that's a great way for us to continue that community spirit and engagement and holiday spirit. This way you can be in your pod with your family all together and be safe together and have a good time. So I hats off to the recreation team for that. And of course it's in their brochure, which is available online now. So you heard about, we've done some drainage conversations. Thank you so much to Rob and to Doug and to Sarah for that. And I really am trying to understand how we can maximize all the work we're doing and funnel it into comprehensive planning so that things mesh together well and we're not doing duplicative things, and that we're knowledgeable when people get engaged with comprehensive planning. The way we're starting out with comprehensive planning, the concept is to have all the people, the 70 or so people now who are interested or express their interest, and anyone else in the public who wants to attend our listening sessions, for them to do so. Those are being broken down into 3 days. The first is September 20th from 3 to 4:30. It's a Sunday afternoon, and these sessions will be on these Sunday afternoons from 3 to 4:30. September 20th, October 18th, and November 22nd. The 3 sessions will allow comprehensive plan interested folks in the community to literally get on the same page and have some shared reference points about our natural environment, our history, and our built environment, and commerce. So we're so grateful to Doug, who reached out to the former president of SUNY ESF and extremely knowledgeable and engaged resident, Dr. Neil Murphy, who will join us for September 20th's event on the natural environment. So you want to know about our land and our water? Come. It will be entertaining, interesting, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Very good. Thank you, Heather. And you mentioned Doug. And Doug, I forgot to ask if you had anything for us tonight.
I did, Ed. I did send out late this afternoon. Earlier today, I received the annual scope of work from regional planning for stormwater assistance. So, over the next month or two, we just need to take that draft resolution and adopt it at one of these meetings. They're holding their rates the same that they did last year, so it's $3,600. Some of the things they provide, staff support, training, but the big one that they provide that we just couldn't do on our own is public education and outreach, their websites, their kiosks, all that type of stuff. So, at your leisure, take a look at that. It's pretty much the same document that the town has entered into for years. And, my recommendation is that we would enter into that again at the same rate that we did last year. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. I just remembered that. We talked about it for the meeting. So thank you, Doug.
Yeah, it was kind of a last minute thing. Yeah.
Very good. I only have one quick thing before we make a motion. And I don't know if anyone noticed, Chris Peck had ordered our new flagpole. And so if you look, he set it up on the north side of Town Hall. Right now we have the Arbor Day flag on that, but what prompted that, of course, was the Pride Month flag, that in order to maintain flag etiquette, we're really not supposed to flag certain flags with the United American flag. So now we have an extra flagpole that we can use for those special occasions. So I just thought I'd mention that. It's really nice. It's amazing what he had to go through just to dig a 4-foot hole or whatever it was, not even. So that's all I have. With that, I need a motion to go into executive session. And Allison, you want to explain the process as we go in for the public's knowledge?
Sure. We'll keep the meeting live, and when you return from executive session, then you'll close the meeting publicly, but it'll just say executive session across the screen.
Okay, very good.
We're going into executive session to discuss contract negotiation, personnel matters, and pending litigation.
So we need a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And carried. All right, very good, everyone. See you back in a few. Do I click off, Allison, or do you?
Who made it?
Ooh.
I think we're coming back. I just hopped off. Caitlin said that her computer might die and she doesn't have her charger. So just in case we miss her. Here she is. Or no, maybe not.
You think I look like Caitlin?
No, I just see that her Zoom box.
There she is.
I have 3% left and I have no charger. So if I disappear, I apologize.
I'm here, Allison, but it says you're not letting me on.
Same here.
Okay, got it. Thank you. She's in charge.
Everyone left their video and their audio on, so I had to.
Oh, boy, did they? Yep.
Yes.
I'm down to 2%.
All right. So do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion needs to be made to approve the tentative agreement that the town has made with the PBA and which was set forth to you in executive session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carried. All right, and
Then the second motion needs to be authorize the supervisor to sign a settlement agreement and release in case number 5:17-CV-933 in the United States District Court, Northern District of New York.
I'll make that motion. So moved.
do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carried. Caitlin made it.
We have 1%. I am like about to be gone. All right.
I think we're pretty much can wrap it up, I think.
I'll
right?
make a motion to close our meeting this evening.
Jordan?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Nice job tonight.
Thanks, Allison.